Well, we are anticipating statements from them. It'll be interesting to see if they focus mainly on the Mideast peace process. That's what President Trump has largely been focused on in his remarks throughout Israel, talking about how the Israelis and the Palestinians share a common enemy in Iran, and he believes that should bring both sides to the table toward a Mideast peace agreement. But also, they've now had this private meeting after both Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump brought up this sensitive intelligence issue. It'll be interesting to see if they say anything more on that. And then, as you pointed out, Wolf, they head to dinner privately with their wives.
They're walking in right now, the President and the First Lady. They're going to be, I guess, signing a little welcome book for the arrival there. This is the Prime Minister's residence in Jerusalem, I believe. Let's listen in.
Let's see.
But thanks to you, we could paint the wall. We've got the budget to paint the walls.
Oh, fantastic. We will tell you what we did.
The whitewashing.
This was wonderful. All the house is painted for you.
The beautiful flowers too in the note.
Oh, I'm so happy that you might be time.
You both look fantastic. You were going at the hospital.
Yes, it was
It
wonderful.
was really a nice tour.
It was a nice tour when we met children, and it was wonderful. Yeah, really, very happy. And we can make all the smile to the children and just they were very happy.
Careful of that, might be very bad.
I don't think so.
We didn't think just 2 days ago.
This we got.
Yeah, we got a few things.
Great, thanks. Next, now we'll take a photo.
Now we have this corner of photos.
Okay.
We have a few
This worked
stations.
out very well. This has been a very successful house.
Listen,
We've been here, this is a fourth
house.
one.
This is the
Oh,
general
before
house.
that, this is a gift from us to you.
Oh, wow.
It's a Bible from 150 years ago. It's a 150-year-old Bible in English, and it describes what happened here. It all took place here. So
That is really beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was very happy that he decided
That's really good.
to do this.
Thank you.
Your people will take it.
It's a good book.
Yeah.
It's the good book.
It's the book. Now this is the place.
Now, how shall we do this? Should we have Melania
Melania?
in here, and then we'll switch it?
We will switch. Wonderful.
Ah, okay. Now, shall we do one permutation? One? Or maybe, Donna, if you come here, that's it? If you're here, we're done.
Now then.
That's it?
No.
Oh, yes? Okay, sure. Thank you.
Now
End of
we
ceremony.
want
Are we
you
doing a speech
to...
outside?
Yeah, we're done in 2
But I
minutes.
want you just to meet our boy.
This is Sarah Jared.
Good.
You seen him?
Oh, hi there. I know.
That's the son-in-law, and that's the son. Where's our
You
boy?
are a kid.
This is our boy.
Still here.
One of them.
Thank you for everything you do. It's an honor to meet
This is
you.
my son.
Hello. Hello. It's an honor to meet you. I'm a big fan of both of you.
There's another one.
He's our student, and we have another soldier.
I've heard about you so much from my mother. She talks about you all the time.
She's fantastic.
And,
And you're so
And I
look-alike.
tell
It's
you what,
amazing, right?
how good mother
He's
are
got his-
around. And we
I
are
got one
Such a
that
big
looks
fan.
like
You have a
me,
great
this one
mom.
looks like
He's like me, and our other son is the copy of Bibi, like Veroni's copy of you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And you know, I can relate a lot to what Baron is going through because I've been in his age in my dad's first term. And
Yeah,
you know,
And look how he turns out.
It only makes you stronger. That's all.
stronger, yeah.
That
very
makes you
hard.
stronger.
It's very hard.
Immediately after your election, he said to me, I feel for Baron because he's a child. You
Yeah.
know, he's a child. He doesn't have any tools or ability to fight them back, and he's a child.
Yeah, he was here first time when he was 6.
they were doing satires on me when I was 3 years old.
Yeah, 5 years old, yeah.
They're waiting for us outside, so we'll give you a 60-second tour.
Yeah, we'll show you.
60 seconds.
It's really, like I said, it's really homey. Very, very homey. We have all the pictures from the Israeli museum, which are Israeli paintings, which are really, yeah. And here we have these are really the most valuable things. These are things from 2,000, 5,000 years ago. They're real things. And it shows you that we're live here.
This is beer 5,000 years ago.
This is beer, and this is a necklace, Melania. They found a necklace 5,000 years ago. This one,
They've got
the whole, and the winery and the things, you see? The whole thing.
I was at the
This is the office of the winery.
Yeah, I can totally that. This is Untitled Chapter.
All right, so you see the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, and his wife, Mrs. Netanyahu, welcoming the President of the United States and the First Lady of the United States to the residence, the Prime Minister's residence in Jerusalem. We still do anticipate that the Prime Minister and the President will be making statements, we're told, fairly soon, but they're still going through a little tour of the Prime Minister's residence. Sarah, based on what we know, we still anticipate statements before they actually sit down for dinner at the residence. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. You see the podium set up there. That would give us an indication that they are going to speak again. I think we heard a little bit more than we expected from them earlier when they were meeting at the King David Hotel and they were speaking about Israeli intelligence. They've now had some time to meet privately. So we will see again what comes up as they both give their statements. If they're predominantly talking about trying to move toward a Mideast peace deal, if the possibility of moving the embassy comes up again, something White House advisors made clear the president does not plan to do immediately, move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, something he promised on the campaign trail. And again, whether this issue of President Trump sharing sensitive Israeli intelligence with Russians comes up in these statements. But Wolf, it's worth pointing out that all sides of this wanted this visit to go well, wanted this meeting to go well. So what we may hear are two glowing statements about what a wonderful day they all had together and how they're all committed to reaching a peace agreement. Of course, as you know, this is something that has been thwarting presidents for decades, trying to reach this Mideast peace agreement. So it's one thing for all these parties to indicate they have a willingness to come to the table to talk about it, an entirely different thing to actually reach an agreement. And this is just day one for the president in meeting with some.
We're going to Prime Minister new negotiations. Solution, not to talk about an independent Palestinian state, and also not to talk about settlements. So again, it'll be interesting to see what they say here. I guarantee you that if he is able to keep the president from talking about those things today, it's going to be much more difficult for President Trump not to talk about those things tomorrow.
But don't forget, this is the second time he's met with President Abbas in a month. Okay, and up until now, he's only really seen the conflict from an Israeli lens. And now that he's meeting Abbas and learning more about the Palestinian story, tomorrow when he goes to Bethlehem, he's going to be seeing that wall sneaking through the Bethlehem Palestinian territories.
It looks like the President, Prime Minister walking into that. Well, there's the First Lady of the United States. Mrs. Netanyahu walking in as well, the wife of the Prime Minister of Israel. You heard her speaking as part of that tour was going on of the Prime Minister's residence. But let's listen in, because the President and the Prime Minister are being introduced.
Trump and the Prime Minister of the State of Israel, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu.
Thank you.
President Trump, Donald, Sarah and I are absolutely delighted to welcome you and Melania to the Prime Minister's residence in Jerusalem, the eternal capital of the Jewish people, the united capital of the Jewish state. We've known each other for many years, and it's always good to see you. But it's also wonderful to see the blossoming friendship between our two beautiful wives, Sarah and Melania. You're so welcome here, and we're so pleased to see you. We're honored to have you in our home. You've been today, Mr. President, to the Western Wall, one of the holiest sites of Judaism. You've been to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, one of the holiest sites of Christianity. We protect the Christian sites as no one else does anywhere in this region. We protect Christian sites, Muslim sites, obviously Jewish sites. We're committed to the freedom of all faiths and to the rights of all. Mr. President, I appreciate the fact that you went to the Western Wall, and you're the first acting president who's done that. The people of Israel applaud you for it. We had a terrific discussion today, and when I say terrific, it encompasses everything. We could talk about deregulation, we could talk about economics. I think we quote each other. We understand each other and so much of the things that we wish to accomplish for both our countries. But I want to thank you especially today for your deep commitment to Israel's security, its well-being, and its future. I have no doubt that as we work together, you and I, the alliance between our countries will grow ever stronger. I want you to know how much we appreciate the change in American policy on Iran, which you enunciated so clearly just an hour ago. I want you to know how much we appreciate your bold decision to act against the use of chemical weapons in Syria. And I want to tell you also how much we appreciate the reassertion of American leadership in the Middle East. I look forward to working closely with you to confront the dangers we face together in this violent and volatile Middle East. I believe that together we could roll back Iran's march of aggression and terror in this region, and we can thwart Iran's unbridled ambition to become a nuclear weapon state. I also look forward to working closely with you to advance peace in our region, because you have noted so succinctly that common dangers are turning former enemies into partners. And that's where we see something new and potentially something very promising. It won't be simple, but for the first time in many years, and Mr. President, for the first time in my lifetime, I see a real hope for change. The Arab leaders who you met yesterday could help change the atmosphere, and they could help create the conditions for a realistic peace. These are all great signs on your historic visit. It's a visit that I think has echoed down the ages, because the great Abraham Lincoln is reported to have said that there was no city on earth he so much desired to see as Jerusalem. Well, Mr. President Donald, there's no city on earth where you are more welcome than right here with us in Jerusalem. Welcome to Jerusalem. Welcome to Israel.
Thank you very much, and it's a great honor to be with my good friend, Prime Minister Netanyahu, and of course, Sarah, thank you. And also thank you for that beautiful tour. Melania is still talking about it. Thank you very much. You honored me and Melania by being one of the first world leaders to visit the White House, as you know. And we had a very good and sound discussion. And now you honor us again by welcoming us to your home on my first trip abroad as the President of the United States. This is a land filled with beauty, wonder, and the Spirit of God. I've been amazed by the glorious and beautiful monuments and holy sites and the generosity of your incredible people.
Thank you.
Because it's all about the people. I was deeply moved by my visit today to the Western Wall. Words fail to capture the experience. It will leave an impression on me forever. Today we reaffirm the unbreakable bond of friendship between Israel and the United States. A friendship built on our shared love of freedom, our shared belief in human dignity, and our shared hope for an Israel at lasting peace. We want Israel to have peace. But we are more than friends. We are great allies. We have so many opportunities in front of us. But we must seize them together. We must take advantage of the situation. And there are many, many things that can happen now that would never have been able to happen before, and we understand that very well. That includes advancing prosperity, defeating the evils of terrorism, and facing the threat of an Iranian regime that is threatening the region and causing so much violence and suffering. During my travels, I have seen many hopeful signs that lead me to believe that we can truly achieve a more peaceful future for this region and for people of all faiths and all beliefs, and frankly, all over the world. In my visit to Saudi Arabia, I met with many leaders of the Arab and Muslim world, including King Salman, who treated us so beautifully and really wants to see great things happen for the world. He really does. I got to know him well, and he really does. These leaders voice concerns we all share about ISIS, about Iran's rising ambitions and rolling back its gains, and about the menace of extremism that has spread through too many parts of the Muslim world. I'm encouraged that they pledge cooperation to confront terrorism and the hateful ideology that drives it so hard. America welcomes the action and support of any nation willing to do the hard but vital work in eradicating the violent ideologies that have caused so much needless bloodshed and killing here and all over the world. We are willing to work together. I believe that a new level of partnership is possible and will happen, one that will bring greater safety to this region, greater security to the United States, and greater prosperity to the world. This includes a renewed effort at peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians. And I thank the Prime Minister for his commitment to pursuing the peace process. He's working very hard at it. It's not easy. I've heard it's one of the toughest deals of all. But I have a feeling that we're going to get there eventually. I hope. I'm certain we will have very productive discussions. And we're going to have very productive discussions, in my opinion, with the leaders of other nations also. And I feel strongly about that because there's a lot of love out there. And people from all nations, even nations that you would be surprised to hear, they want to stop the killing. They've had enough. America stands ready to assist in every way we can. Our deep and lasting friendship will only grow deeper and stronger as we work together in the days ahead. I thank you again for hosting us in this beautiful and ancient land. Truly, it's a land of wonders, and it's my honor to be here with you. Sarah, thank you. Bibi, thank you. I appreciate it very much. Great honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Where would you like us to stand? There.
We have our name.
Oh, we have one.
We even have cards.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
תודות, והם צריכים חזרה אל תוך מעון ראש הממשלה.
So there you heard the very strong statements from the Prime Minister of Israel, the President of the United States, both of them expressing hope, even some optimism from President Trump that a peace deal between the Israelis and the Palestinians potentially is possible. The president saying, I have a feeling we're going to get there eventually, I hope. I want to go right to our senior White House correspondent, Jim Acosta, who's traveling with the president in Jerusalem right now. Jim, give us your analysis of what we just heard from these two leaders.
Well, I think you heard the president sum it up right there. He said that Middle East peace he's heard is one of the toughest deals of all. The art of the deal comes to the Holy Land is what it sounds like from the president there, Wolf. He is hoping, and he's placed his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, a senior advisor to the president, in this position in hopes of reaching some kind of Middle East peace deal. The White House is not under any impression, Wolf, that that's going to happen on this trip, but they're certainly hoping to set the table with that. And one of the ways that they're doing that, Wolf, and we've heard this over the last 48 hours when the president was in Saudi Arabia, and now that he's in Israel, he is sort of playing the game of the enemy is my friend. He was talking in Saudi Arabia about the threat posed by Iran, and lo and behold, he arrives in Jerusalem after visiting the Western Wall and so forth, and it is talking about the threat posed by Iran and the Iran nuclear deal. And so this is a message that we're hearing from the president repeatedly throughout this foreign trip. He hasn't said so far that he's going to rip up that Iran nuclear deal. That's certainly something that we haven't heard yet. If he gives us a chance to ask some questions about that, I suppose that'll be one of the questions that is asked. But he is certainly emphasizing that every step of the way. But I do think it's interesting, Wolf, once again, the president, who comes from that real estate background, putting Middle East peace in negotiation terms, as if it is a deal that perhaps he can bring his skills to bear and make happen. The prime minister is certainly someone who will be driving a hard bargain in that department, and the president now is going to meet with the Palestinian president next, Mahmoud Abbas. He's going to find perhaps not as receptive an audience because the Palestinians have their own laundry list of issues that they feel the United States has not paid close enough attention to, and they certainly feel that perhaps the president's feelings are more heavily weighted in the direction of Israel than in terms of the Palestinians. So I think it'll be fascinating, must-watch TV to see how the president handles the Palestinian president after this very warm reception he's received here in Israel from the prime minister and the Israeli president and so on.
Yeah, he received a very warm reception from the Saudi king in Riyadh, now very warm reception from the Prime Minister of Israel in Jerusalem. John Kirby and Elise Labott are still with us. John, the notion, the theory is that with this Iranian fear that the Saudis, the Emiratis, the Bahrainis, the Egyptians, the Jordanians, the moderate Sunni Arab states have, maybe you bring them into this peace process. They have a lot of money to contribute to the Palestinians, whether in the West Bank and Gaza, and maybe together, working with Israel and the United States, you could come up with some sort of two-state solution. That's the U.S. goal right now.
Right. He's clearly trying to use Iran as a unifying element here to try to get everybody sort of aligned towards a peace process. The problem with it is he's putting his finger on the scale of the Sunni-Shia conflict, which is really what the tensions with Iran at the base level are all about. And when you do that, when you put your thumb on the scale, like in terms of the Muslim faith like that, you are making it a little bit harder to get long-term peace in the region, which is what he says he wants. I also think, again, you got to look up domestic politics in Israel don't really lend themselves right now to finding a solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, at least not right now. Now, he did say it could take some time, but you notice what you didn't hear. You didn't hear either guy talk about a two-state solution. And that's what really going to be interesting to see what happens tomorrow when he meets with President Abbas. I don't know that I agree with Jim. I don't know that it's going to be a frosty meeting with President Abbas. But I do think that President Abbas is going to want to drive down to more tangential, practical elements of Mideast peace, including a two-state solution.
Elise, what did you think?
Well, I think a couple of things are going on here. First of all, John's right about that. These Arabs are not going to make a peace deal with Israel, are not going to get close to Israel and have a partnership with Iran against Iran until there are some steps for the Palestinian. And I've been speaking to a lot of Arab diplomats. They see what's going on here. President Trump is trying to bring Israel into the fold. And they said, yes, there's a lot of cooperation to be had. There's some under the table right now, but we're not going to do it fully and we're not going to do it publicly until Israel starts to take some steps. When President Trump says there's a lot of love in the world, there's not a lot of love for Israel in the world from these Arab states. And so I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Also, what you didn't hear President Trump say is echoing what Prime Minister Netanyahu said, a unified Jerusalem, the unified capital of the Jewish state. This is going to continue to be a very prickly issue. They're trying to talk about a lot of cooperation, but this is less of the kind of embrace of Israel that I think the Israelis expected. And so as he goes to the Palestinian territory, he's going to see very nice things to President Abbas. Yes, the relationship with the U.S. and Israel is sacrosanct. There'll be a very tight relationship, but I don't think they're going to get a rubber stamp from President Trump like they expected in the beginning.
I know the Israelis are encouraged that there are behind the scenes, not publicly, behind the scenes movement in terms of cooperation between Israel and various Arab states that haven't necessarily happened in the past. That's encouraging, not just to the Israelis, but to the U.S. side as well. Everybody stay with us. There's a lot more coming up.